Welcome to my channel. My name is Desio, and today I'll take you on another step-by-step video of my latest piece in Shanghai. As you can see, it started to rain heavily that day. I knew I wouldn't be able to paint, but I was hoping to get a head start on the background and come back the next day to paint the piece. So luckily, after an hour, the rain dissipated and I was able to carry on. At that moment, I didn't really have an idea of what I wanted to paint in the background, but I had the bucket and I knew the buff was quite watery and that even before the rain, so I had grabbed some scrap cans from my studio and thought I'd freestyle some textures onto the background, maybe just fades and splashes. The wind took me by surprise, however, and I could tell I'd have a hard time trying to do anything neat. So I decided to just go at it, trying random things, placing lines, shapes here and there, mixing spray and bucket. Here you can see I found a broken branch from the rain with a couple of leaves, and I thought I'd try and explore with textures I could get out of it. Wasn't really working, but I didn't really care at this time. I'm just filling the space and emptying cans. Quite liked the plants and leaves and decided to explore the pattern with that in mind. After using the branch as a stencil, I started painting the same shapes and just overlapping them one on top of the other, and yeah, just give me an idea for the entire piece later on. You may be asking why I am painting details throughout the wall, knowing most of them will be covered by the piece. And yeah, that's a good question. Personally, I find it a lot easier to work this way on the background as I can get a lot looser. Also, it enables me to discover some things that I can maybe incorporate later on. It's time I start sketching the piece. Let me take you to how I do my sketches. I always start by doing a bunch of thumbnail-sized pieces that focus on the power lines. Power lines form the main structure of every letter. It's like a skeleton. By doing it this way, I get to work on the flow and quickly try different combinations and angles and see what could potentially work without getting too distracted by details that aren't part of the letter structure. These look like tags, but I'm actually trying to visualize the piece with each stroke. I choose one I like and then I draw it a little larger onto another piece of paper as I would on the wall. Another little perk of this sketching this way is you end up finding many different ways of creating your letters, and most importantly, you avoid the trap of overly complicating the beginning of your letters and not being able to keep on the flow throughout the piece. It really is one of the best ways I find to make your pieces change it up every kind of time, and not stick to just one way of doing your letter, like one letter you found, one combination you found, and just sticking to always doing the same thing. And so back day 2 with a sketch I did the night before. Here you see me placing those power lines. I try placing them basically in the same way that I did on the paper, just adjusting them a little to fit. I put the first line sketch on the side for you to see, so that's kind of like what I'm drawing right now, those power lines that indicate where the letters are going to be. Once I'm happy with those, then I go on to create the letters as a guide. So just expanding from the power lines, using the power lines as a guide for exactly where I'm going to put each one of the strokes. Now I always step back from the wall and sketch to check how they're looking. What works on paper doesn't necessarily work well on the wall, so you always need to make some adjustments and really think about it clearly. Also, I hate the feeling of being like a printer and just reproducing a sketch. It's always better to use it as a reference, understanding what works on the paper and then what works on the wall. How sometimes the wall is very different, so sometimes what you had planned just doesn't go well, or there's something different about the wall. So now, for instance, here I didn't like how the bottom of the O was going on the sketch. I felt I should instead add a stroke to counterbalance the stroke I placed on D and E. And to avoid a direct symmetry, however, I decided to invert it, and so I feel it ends better that way, kind of like a rolling. The top of the O gave me quite a bit of trouble, as well until I figured out how to add this little elbow joint. The half star I sketched, that also didn't fit correctly, so I made it smaller, but because of this, the balance felt a bit off, and I added another smaller one on the side of my eye. Now let's get to the fill-in. As I mentioned on a previous video, at the moment I absolutely love filling in with marker cap. It's fast, dirty, but at this stage it's not really a problem. You can cover big spaces quickly, and you can get sharp lines and angles if you turn it like you paint, unlike a fat cap. It's also very committal, so you don't lose energy with your lines. Here you notice I'm really filling in like really sloppily, like really messy. I don't mind like the overspray of one color going on top of the other. I'll fix it afterwards. So for now I just put it so that I can quickly place all the colors kind of like where I need it, and I can like look from afar and see if it works or not. And also because I decided to paint like fading in patches, like not like a solid one color or like one color fade kind of like in one way or another, but just having like fades here and there in different areas at the same time. I knew that this way like it makes me go quick, and then after I can come back at it and really think about it a lot easier. Choose to paint in patches with neutral brown, beige, and grays, colors of falling leaves. Summer's gone, so it's time for autumn, so I thought this was quite fitting, especially with the leaves I started painting the day before. I decided I'd paint leaves as details also inside the fill, just like I did on the background, but bigger so as to create a contrast. Just overlapping them and focusing on the areas where the colors are blending with one another. This creates quite an interesting camouflage pattern. I had quite a lot of fun exploring that, and it's also a welcoming change from bubbles and just blocks. I'm really improvising this as I go along, so I'm sometimes filling in with the color, sometimes I'm doing the details. It's really just how I feel at the moment, and on the specific moment when I'm painting. So it's like suddenly I see, oh well, this color could work well here, or this little piece here I need a little more details. Sometimes I paint, sometimes I just overpaint what I just did, and it's like I don't really try to make it into like a real set process. It's more like by intuition in a way. Now here you can see I really don't focus too much on trying to be very clean, like when I do my detail. I think it's like details, you just add more details where it gets in a way dirty, like not filled in correctly or something. You can always go back on it. But when I'm filling in and when I'm creating these kind of like parts, at that moment I really don't try to focus too much on trying to be clean, because like I end up always like going over it afterwards, like repainting on top. So it's more at the end, when I finish the filling in, do I come back and kind of like recut some parts that I don't like or that I feel need to be adjusted. Now for the outline in 3D, I hesitated for a while. I had this first idea of going with the reds, but I was a bit scared the outline wouldn't pop on an orange-pink background. My other alternative was going either super pale green or simply white. I mean, white alone always works. I mean, it's like white or black are two obvious colors for outline, as they function all the time. They always have the most contrast, so they always work. But as it felt a bit like a cop-out, I decided I'd try and push myself a bit, and pale green, on the other hand, would have been interesting, but maybe too acidic, and I worried it would overpower kind of like everything else, and overpower all the details I had done. So I decided to stick with my intuition, and in the end, I'm quite happy I did. It's a bit of a strange color scheme, but I like it. quite curious if anyone has any other idea of a color outline that could have worked well. Like, feel free to comment them below. I'm always looking into colors and trying to see what colors kind of like work. Sometimes it's the most weird color combination that works, create something very interesting. So any ideas, feel free to leave a comment. I always like doing my outlines in one go. So I see where I need to go, and I just go for it. Like, I trust my hand and the process. That I think it's the best way of painting, and not trying to think too much, like pushing the lines to have to recut all that. Sometimes I do recut at the end, like some parts that I don't like or whatever, but I can always fix it afterwards. And it's better in order to maintain flow and maintain energy, to do your lines, I think, in one go. Just focus on what you're painting, and just trust your hand, and usually you'll make it. It just comes after a while, but yeah. And if sometimes you mess up your line a little bit, and it's okay. With another line, just make that part a little bit bigger, or just change your thing a little bit, and it works. Nobody notices. And yeah, here the GoPro crashed and froze, losing all the footage of me painting the 3D and the shadow. So from now on, I promise I'll try and always have like 2 recording devices going on, so I don't lose anything. I was really disappointed when I saw this. I thought about adding something on the space on the right. I hadn't really thought about it before, so I had to think something quickly because I was running out of time. I got this idea of a giant stick figure made of flour, and thought it could be quite funny and quite quick to do, so I added it in. Was going to do a second one as well that had been trappled, but couldn't really figure out how to place it, so just kept on one flower, and the other one survived. And here is the final piece. you made it this far, make sure you like and subscribe. I'll be making more videos to come, so if you have any suggestions as to what you'd like to see next or how I can improve the videos, don't hesitate to mention below. And I'll see you guys in the next video.